Good day, people in the world of tone. I am glad to be reunited with my brothers in tone, Brian and Grant, the other chairman to the boards.
The one board,
plural.
We share it.
We're guitarists. We have multiple boards.
And today we're going to be talking about the influx of $99, sub $100, for those of you who don't want to do the math, USA-made guitar pedals. And I'm speaking specifically of things like the JHS 3 series, which are white pedals with 3 knobs that are $99. I'm speaking of the all-new Robert Keeley pedals that are reverb exclusive. This is the Super Bass, the Suns, and the Soft. We'll get into what those are. And then also one that I thought about right before we went on is the Beatronics Tuna Fuzz, which is in essence a tuna can shaped device that is a fuzz, also $99. And I believe, although they are Brazilian in origin, they are made in USA. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the impact of $99 pedals, how it is a benefit or potentially a detriment to the industry, and how it might be a benefit to customers, or is it? We will discuss these things, and we hope that you join us in the chat if you're joining us on YouTube. And if you're joining us on your favorite podcast streaming app, we welcome you just the same. Gentlemen, before we start, I would love to get a baseline. Where are you as it relates to $99 pedals? And let's restrict this to, do you feel like this is a good thing? Do you feel like this is a bad thing? Do you have any experience with these pedals? Just so our listeners kind of know, again, our starting place here. Brian or Grant, who would like to start?
I'll take this one. I'm a fan. I think it's a good thing. My first thought, being someone that has to manufacture a product, not the same as, the guitar pedal necessarily, but like junction boxes, all that. The first thing that comes to mind is that's impressive. I don't know how they do it, and I'm sure we'll get into that cost-wise. But my second thought for it is these are trusted brands, and I may have missed this, Mason. I don't know if you mentioned the Walrus. Is it?
I did not. I did not. The Walrus Fundamentals is also
series
on this list. Yeah, the Fundamentals.
So another $99 kind of area. I'm a fan. I'm not going to go into it too much. I think my only issue with the Beatronics tuna can fuzz, I want to know the tuna that was in there. If it's albacore, I'm all for it. But bluefin, I don't know if I could support that as much. So I don't know if we know that information, if they post it on the website.
Do you have a preference if it's in olive oil versus water?
I'm an oil man.
Packed? Okay.
Yep.
Oil man, okay. Yep.
Oil all the way, as they say. So I'm sure we'll get into that as well, the type of tuna and where it's sourced from.
He likes his tuna lubricated, now we know.
Brian?
I don't have much, hands-on experience with the Beatronic stuff, so I can't really speak into that one. But as far as like the JHS, the 3 series, the Walrus fundamental stuff, I think, I think there's pros and cons. People, as we were talking about this beforehand, I think people, will look at that price and they'll automatically be like, oh, that's a crap pedal. But I think getting especially from these companies, like if you're getting a $99 pedal off Amazon, depending on where it is and what it's doing, like sometimes you'd be surprised. But I think, looking at the price now and seeing it's more it's lower in price doesn't mean it's bad. So I'm not against it. I like trying pedals that are like, oh yeah, like that's awesome. That was, $100 or whatever. So I think people will easily be like, oh no, that's crap. But I think they're cool. I think you kind of have to look at the track history of those companies that are coming out with the pedals and what they're coming out with and the quality of the stuff. So like if they're coming out with quality pedals that are in the couple $100 range, them doing a simplified version with less pedals, like it's still I think it's still going to be killer. And I haven't tried the Keeley stuff yet, but I hope to be able to. But I know Keeley and them very well.
My opinion is that it's nothing but good for customers. It's great for the industry. I think it's great for the getting new people into the boutique marketplace. I can see a younger version of myself who would see these pedals from these, legacy and esteemed pedal manufacturers such as JHS, Walrus, Keeley, and want to get into one of those pedals, but not having the means to do it. And so this gives entry. It just makes the barrier to entry into a boutique brand easier.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to develop a relationship with these brands that you may be buying for the rest of your life as a musician. And so I think that this is great. And I know that there's also a lot of people that are very price motivated as it relates to pedals, and they may have ordinarily been buying, these budget brands that exist on Amazon or Joyo or fill in the blank. I think it's really impressive that you're getting an American-made pedal at this rate. And as Grant alluded to, as a manufacturer, I think it's extremely impressive because they have to be making this for sub $50, because when you're building in the margins for a dealership, there's just no way to make any money from it. I would be surprised if any of these companies were making more than $20 a pedal. And that's being
generous.
Yeah, very generous. I think it's probably closer to 10. And so I feel like this is an example of a company that is really doing this for the customer. They are making this pedal because they care about the customer and they want people to have access.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of betting on the fact that they're going to be able to put out this product, that they're going to gain more traction with budget-minded and motivated customers, or maybe just people that want something that's simple. In the early days of boutique pedals, something like this was easily $200. USA made, 3 knobs, 1590 enclosure, 9-volt jack. I think that this is pretty extraordinary. And I think that it takes obviously a company of a certain size to do it. I think, obviously the Beatronics one is the exception, but really impressive stuff. And we know that they're going to be made to a certain level of quality. It doesn't look like they've shifted the quality of what they would normally be appointed with when you buy a Keeley pedal or something like that, or a JHS pedal. It looks like the same sort of jacks, same sort of knobs. It seems fairly standardized across the board. So it doesn't seem like you're getting an inferior product. But I'm curious, Brian, before we started recording, you sort of talked from the perspective of somebody that was working at a guitar store.
Yeah.
Because you were working at the Guitar Sanctuary when the 3 series was released, for example. And I think also in the Walrus Fundamental series was released. What was the sort of the retail perspective? And as Grant takes a sip of his afternoon Chardonnay.
It's delicious.
I think from the store perspective, we thought it was really cool. It was really cool to get something in that it wasn't $400. Because that stuff adds up. We were just talking about it on the board, like board builds and stuff. Like the hidden, not the hidden cost, like a board build. The pedals, when you start adding up what the pedals cost to do a board build, like physically building the board, it's actually much cheaper. But the same thing applies to going to like a guitar store. You grab 2 pedals and sometimes you could walk out with $1,500. That's 2 pedals. So to hear that you could get an entire series of pedals for, $1,000, yeah, but it's all the pedals. It's such a, like, we were like, this is a really great starter kit sometimes for people, like people that want to, like, yeah, I'm interested in guitar, but I also don't want to have to go, break the bank. It was like, we were building boards that were like 4 pedals, and it was like, compression, overdrive, delay, and reverb, or vice versa, or any of those other pedals. And we thought it was great. From the buyer perspective, we would have so many people come in and be like, oh no. Like, no. They snub their nose. Like, what does $100 have to, like, that means you can buy, like, your budget's $300. You could walk out with 3 of these pedals, rather overdrive, instead of 3 separate pedals. But I'm like, that overdrive is going to produce the same sound, and it's the same style of pedal. I get that it's a different series of whoever the company is, and it doesn't have the exact same knobs, and people, like, they just, like, there's a hit or miss. You get some of the guys, I'm about to be 32, so I say older guys, but like like the old, like, guys in their 50s and 60s, and they're like, this is awesome, like, this makes it so easy to just jam. But like a lot of the younger market people are like, oh, well, it doesn't have MIDI, it doesn't have this, like, they start picking it apart, and I'm like, you have to take it at the face value. It's a $99 pedal. It's really basic. So from the store perspective, to wrap it up from my side, we loved it. But from the consumer, it was always such a hard sell, because it was trying to explain to them why they're not, that $99 pedal was worth the price, even though it's a killer deal. So I don't know.
Well, I think we also,
this day and age, let's save money.
We also do know as well, though, that, and I'm guilty of this myself, people first buy with their eyes. And so unless you're doing a whiteout board, I don't know if that's allowed in 2025, then it's going to be really hard to initially sell people on this. But I think once you, again, and we've said this in other, related to other products and other episodes, but if you could play these pedals with your eyes closed, you won't be able to tell the difference. It's going to be a great sounding reverb. It's going to be a great sounding overdrive. So long as you like the sound coming out of the pedal, and you can get past the fact that maybe the looks are a little bit more basic, or the powder coat is standardized across the line, and all of that is choices to save money by the company so they can make it $99. Like, that's one of the elements, is standardize as many elements as possible. But the pedals themselves, I mean, the pros in my mind with this, which are not things I think many people would necessarily think about first, is yes, it's a $99 pedal. It wasn't made overseas. So if something does go wrong, JHS is in America. Walrus is in America. Like, getting these, and they all come with warranties, like full warranties. So if you need to replace something, or you feel like, oh, it can't be that good, something's going to break, you have a full warranty. Just get it sent in, repaired at no cost, and you're sorted. Yeah. But I don't look at these pedals personally. I don't look at these pedals and think like, oh, they got different foot switches that are going to break after 50 cycles, or the toggle switches are going to snap off because it's a $99 pedal. Again, from my personal perspective, I look at these pedals and I think, trusted brand, they know how to make a great sounding pedal, and they are trying to either, like Mason said, get a budget conscious group of customers that they weren't able to access before, and or get people in to try the 3 Series. I'm like, oh, I really like JHS's how they do overdrives. I might try the Morning Glory next time, and it might just be a gateway pedal to get into a more expensive thing down the line. But I would, and I don't know if you would agree with this, Mason, but I don't look at these pedals and think, like, if JHS was only doing 3 Series pedals, they would go out of business. Or if Walrus or Keeley was doing the $99 pedals, it's just not sustainable. You can't run a business on this. So I think it has to be part of a bigger marketing plan of, let's show these people what we can do at a low price point. And in the long run, they'll come back for our other pedals, our other line, or whatever it may be. because you can't run a business on this. It's just, unfortunately, I don't think it's possible. If someone was to tell me, for Goodwood, I've got a great idea for a junction box for you, and you're going to make $15 profit, and not even net profit, gross profit. You're going to make $15 gross profit on this thing, and then you'll have to pay for rent and taxes and all that. Like, there's no way I'm doing a product like that. I can't run my business on that. And so that's why I'm so impressed by this, because it's just not something I can see as being feasible at all for a company my size. It's just, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that loss leader phenomenon where you're getting people in the door, you're gaining new customers, you're gaining market share. But, I think at the same time, although I'm sure that there has to be some motivation, as a business, to sell pedals, I still think it's really admirable, because I feel like
100%.
any of these companies could very easily still be very successful with this concept and have it made overseas. Like, I still think that and I don't even know that it's necessarily a bad thing that something is made in China or Taiwan or Vietnam. I think, as I've said in past episodes, these countries have proven that they can make a high quality product if the demand from the brand that is commissioning the product to be made is that it's a high quality product. You can have high quality, high end products made in these countries. And I think the biggest, obvious example is, an iPhone or any of these pieces of technology that we all use and rely on. Those are all made in China. They're very high quality, considered to be, some of the best at the things that they do. And it's not just Apple. It's, fill in the blank company, Samsung, et cetera. Maybe those are Korea, but actually I think that they're probably still made in China. But anyway, this is to say that if the directive of the company is we want to make a high-end product, that can be made in China, and it can be made, for now, less expensive. We'll see what happens with the tariffs, than it would be made here. And they could have a better margin than they do making it natively in the U.S. I think, though, that these brands are committed to, using U.S. labor and I think supporting the staff that's on their payroll. And I think that this is something that, although I don't own any of these pedals, and I have to be honest, I haven't tried any of these pedals, but I have seen, shots of the PC boards and all that stuff. It's a JHS pedal, or it's a Keeley pedal, or it's a Walrus pedal, in everything that it is, except it's, abbreviated, and it's, made for a price point. And I think that this is great. I think this is healthy for our industry. I don't think that every company could do it. That's in the sort of the boutique, or sort of, teetering on the boutique to mainstream sort of pedal brand. I think it's great that they do this. For the companies that can do it, they should. And I think that it's good for our industry. And I think that kind of all these brands are sort of in a similar position in terms of kind of where they are in the marketplace, JHS, Keeley, Walrus. And I think it's great that they are using their power in the industry for good here. This is the Robin Hood phenomenon of guitar pedals, and then, of course, we have our friends over at Beatronics making the tuna can fuzz. I'm not sure, fuzzes, I admittedly are less expensive to make. There are fewer parts, but they're not a huge company. They're not, I don't expect that they are the same size as JHS or Walrus or Keeley. I think it's still great that they're doing this. It's kind of a novelty concept. It's in this, again, tuna can shaped enclosure. I think it's cool. One knob, two jacks, DC jack.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that they're doing it. Even though they're, not on that same the same level in terms of their size. I think it's cool that they're doing something that is in that $99 range and is unique and it has kind of their branding sensibility, which is like a little bit unusual, a little more, cutting edge, as far as the aesthetic. I think it's kind of cool that they're doing something like this.
And I know we talked about this in previous episodes, but the most expensive part of building a pedal is the things that you cannot avoid. So it's the enclosure. I don't know how this applies to the tuna can. I mean, that might be one way they can.
I don't think it's a real tuna can.
The cost
they've got a tuna can couldn't support the foot switch,
the weight.
Yeah, it's got to be something else.
It's all the hardware. It's all the stuff externally that you end up needing to adjust, the foot switch toggles, enclosure, and knobs. That's the most expensive part of a box. And so, even on a fuzz circuit, let's say it has 2 or 3 knobs on it, the parts count on the PCB is negligible, for the most part, negligible. It's still just, if you want to build a $99 pedal, your biggest costs are going to be that outside hardware that you can really see, and then labor. And so it's, I do find it still, very impressive. It's really cool. I do like Beatronics. They, obviously they've really they're leaning into the name, the Beatronics name, and everything is around that. Their branding is beautiful. Yeah. Like all the stuff they do it's so cool, and it's a quality product. And so I do want to try the tuna can.
If you buy it, you get this guy who's like got his mini fridge open, and he's holding out some tuna with the bee mask on.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I have a question when it comes to one of the series of pedals. So I pulled up their website of the pedals, so like we could actually see what they all look like, because I have a question from you guys from a manufacturer's perspective.
Okay, so which one are you talking about?
It's going to be the Fundamental series. If whoever can enable screen sharing, I think it would be great.
Well, I've got it here. I've got it here on my phone.
You got it. Oh, okay, great. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so
what do you got?
Well, before we do that, I do want to break to talk about our sponsors really quick that make the podcast possible. So first I'm going to talk about the guys at the Guitar Sanctuary, who we've been talking about, who have all of these series that we are talking about: the Fundamental series, the 3 series, the Keeley series. Go check them out.
Do they have Beatronics?
They might have Beatronics. I'm not as familiar with the Beatronics brand. I'm sure they could get it. Yes,
maybe they should.
Maybe they should.
Maybe they should. Maybe this is an opportunity for Brian Meter.
Maybe they should be at the store.
You didn't just do that.
Look at that. Didn't. That was on the cusp, on the fly, guys. Anyway, so the guys at the Guitar Sanctuary, they're awesome. I literally just saw them yesterday when we were talking about this series, actually. So super excited for them. And go check them out at guitarsanctuary.com. Shoot them a text message, give them a call, shoot them an email, chat with them online. We won't be disappointed. Reach out to them. Next to me are friends over at Neural DSP. They have the Quad Cortex, the Nano Cortex, the plugins. Man, I think my week now is just always neural filled. The Nano right there. I have my Quad Cortex that I use on a weekly basis. I use the plugins for all my tutorial videos. I have the Nano Cortex for a backup little thing inside my guitar case. I've got neural out the wazoo right now. Let's be honest. It's everywhere. So they have an awesome code, Chairmen, for 30% off all of their plugins. Worth the money. Their plugins are insanely high quality. You will not be disappointed. Go use that code that tells them that the Chairman sent you. Use the code 70% away from free. Let's save some money, get some new plugins. And they've got some great ones. They have the Mateos plugin, which we had Mateos on before. And he's a great guy, and his plugin is free. Check him out. Morgan Am Suite, all of those. If you need to have them, check them out. Sponsor is going to be the guys over at Bestronics, as I say it for Brad, because Brad just day in and day out gives us that part number that Grant and I or Mason don't know that it was even a thing, and all of a sudden, hey, is this even a part? And he comes back, yep, it's this part number, it's this price, we can ship it today. So go use the code Dutch Hairs, DACHAIRS, for 10% off. get their parts, audio snakes, rack stuff. If you're building a quad cortex rack, go check them out at btpa.com. My question for the Fundamental series is looking at it is the sliders. So like how all the knobs are the sliders.
Right.
Does that make the cost, like, does that make their cost more to make the fit, like, over a pot that turns? I don't know it from a perspective because I don't make pedals. Would that be more money to do it? I mean,
they're probably about the same. They're about the same. I mean, because it's just a pot, you know. So it's not going to be that consequential in terms of like the cost for the knob, the cost for the sliders. I would just say what would make it more expensive is that they have all these set screws that they have to use to support the slider pots. So they have 6 screws, one on each side for each slider to support it to the chassis. So in terms of like labor costs, you know, that's something that can't be done by a machine. So you have to physically mount that. And then you have, you know, 6 additional parts. This is all handwork. Whereas like on the, you know, and you could make an argument, well, on a JHS pedal, you have 3 knobs, let's say, that need to have a washer and a nut, and you have to tighten those down, and then you have to, apply the knob. And maybe that's sort of a wash. I'm not sure. But I would say that I would say that the Walrus to me is maybe slightly more time for assembly would be my guess. Not by a lot, but you know, again, their margins are already paper thin. One thing though that I noticed on the Walrus, it is a larger enclosure than the JHS, and the DC is on the side, which for all the effort for top jacks, I'm looking at it right now.
Oh,
I mean, you're still getting $100 pedal at the end of the day. You're still getting $100 pedal, which is great.
Yeah.
That's if I could have something on my wish list, that would be one thing. But you know, they're probably saving similarly to JHS, where they get the economies of scale, where they have everything is in the same enclosure, you know, and they just have some slight differences in terms of how they're powder coated, and how they're screened. But yeah, I don't think it's a big difference in terms of price comparatively. Like I think like the or not the Walrus ones, the ones that Rocket uses for their graphic EQ sliders that are on some of their devices, like the Melody or the Steve Stevens or the Mark Lettieri, or I guess that is the Melody, or what's the other one called? It has those sliders. I forget the name of it, but those have like built-in LEDs into them. Those are a little more expensive because they have those, you know. But this style that's on the Walrus is not, you know, it's not that expensive.
And then you go all the way, if you're going to go crazy, all the way up into Chase Bliss, like MK2 preamp type thing, and the automated. That's another level of slider when it moves itself.
Yeah.
And for any of those of you wondering, the Elemental series by Walrus is not automated. You have to move these with your fingers.
Manually.
Apology.
I was going to say manalog. That's
Manalog
analog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you guys a question. This is just something that came to mind, unrelated to this. Are you guys still seeing a lot of the MK2 on boards? Or do you feel like that had kind of like a peak, plus or minus, a year or two after its release?
I mean, Brian does a lot more boards than I do, but from my perspective, I would say I definitely still see them, but not nearly as much. I would say it peaked maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Are you still seeing a lot of them, Brian? Brian is
excuse me, not as much. Was it a little tired? No, I would say I get them. Oh man, I don't get them that often. You'll get random. Like I did a build with the CXM, the reverb, but not really I get more of the CXM reverbs than I get the preamps. I think it's because it came out and it's really cool. I think to some people it feels a little daunting, just the stuff that it can do, because it can do a lot. Like it can do fuzz stuff and those push buttons. The push buttons for me, I think, are probably the coolest on top of the the sliders moving. But like, it's just a really big pedal. It takes up a really big spot, and I think that for some people, the real estate, it's just like, especially like, if it's going up on like I just did a rebuild yesterday on one of your Vertex boards, and it was one of the Tour. I think it was the Tour
Elite.
I think it was the Elite
29 or 27.
27, but it had a really deep bridge. Where was
it? Might have been the Tour. I'm going to admit something here that I shouldn't admit. I get confused with the naming of our pedalboards.
Okay, so the Elite is the 2915.
It starts with Tour. Maybe it's compact.
I think it's compact. Yeah, it's the Tour because you have a Travel Light and a Travel Plus, and then you have a
it's Tour compact. Yeah,
you have so it's a 26 by 14, I think was the size, but it was a really deep bridge. So there was maybe like an inch behind, inch and a half maybe, that was behind the pedal. For the connectors and everything. And I think that's one thing with the connectors is I had to use straight connectors on it, because when you start doing pancakes, they just look funky and they can pop out and everything. But that, regardless of that, I have seen way less. Like, dude, I see more. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the one pedal as some random pedal. I don't know. I see more expression pedals or something than I do see of that pedal. And like, I don't get a lot of expression. I get more volume pedal stuff, but like, it's just not one of those things that people are using. And like, I had one guy who put it, and I made the expression on the pedal move with the slider, which was fun to do and everything. Like, it's a really cool pedal. I just think overall size of it, the price of it, and the amount of stuff it can do kind of scares people. Like, it's a cool pedal, but I think it kind of intimidating.
But talk about manufacturing as well. Like, the hardware cost for that pedal, there's a reason it is that expensive.
Yeah, I get. I think it's a manufacturing feat. Like what they've done for that is insane. I'm always curious, as a customer and as a manufacturer, like pedals that withstand the test of time, that you still see relevancy in. And it's just so interesting, the things that seem to cut through and the things that don't. I'll say of our own brand, our Vertex Boost has been relevant for us for 10 years. Like, no matter what I do, I can always sell that pedal. It just always has a place, and stuff it has its time, and other things has their day in the sun, but that's one pedal that I just always know, like, it's always going to work. It's just, it's just one of those things, and it's interesting to see what makes it and what doesn't. I think when you look, I wish that I've talked about this before. It'd be interesting to have like a YouTube channel that's like, like a 10-year review or like a 5-year review. Like, you don't even review the pedals until they've been out for 10 years. And like, are they even relevant, at that point? They were the hottest thing when they were released, but then how are they 10 years from now? And that to me is like, I think a lot of it's luck, but some of it is just, it hits a spot in the market. I think like the EP Booster is a great example of that. Like, that came out over 10 years ago. It's still very relevant. You still see them on a lot of boards, and there's always a trend for
RC
people to
Booster.
go flavor of the month. RC Booster equally, yeah. A lot of the exotic stuff has been relevant for quite a bit of time. maybe less so the AC booster.
Yeah.
Maybe the BB had a good run, I think. But you see these pedals and it's always curious to me that they, like what seems to cut through and what doesn't, because there's plenty of great pedals out there, but yeah, very interesting stuff.
I think with it also being $99 and stuff, like people it's really easy for a lot of these pedals to be thrown, in a
is it EP one? Is it an EP $99?
Oh,
or are you just talking
sorry,
about?
The EP I think is like $139 or something.
It's not expensive.
It's not.
Their pedals are affordable.
No, it's not expensive.
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant referring to the Keeley JHS Waller stuff. Sorry about that. I think back to that subject of them, like those pedals for what they can do and for like how well they sound. I think it's a really cool investment. I definitely think it's the never judge the book by its cover kind of thing. Like you see it. The 3 Series is very plain. It's a white enclosure with the lettering on it. Like it's not fancy. It's not the most beautiful looking pedal. Like there are some companies, like I have this Chase Bliss. I'll move it down. This Chase Bliss mood pedal on this board that I'm doing, and like a lot of these pedals, like they're stunning. They look beautiful and they do a lot of stuff. But I still think you can get a good tone from not so beautiful looking pedals. I'm not calling them ugly because I don't think they're ugly. I just think some people will look at them and be like, oh no. Like I've literally had people, when I worked at the store, I was like, hey, you should really get this pedal. And they're like, no, that pedal's ugly. I was like,
maybe we should call them aesthetically discreet.
Yeah, sure. Aesthetically discreet.
Yeah.
Like people like they clearly did not like the pedal just because of the look. I was like, well, do you want to try it? It sounds really good. And he's like, no, I don't even want to try it. So I understand like that point of view, but some of these pedals, they're really cool. We did, when the 3 Series came out, we did a whole little, I think a 5-10 minute video on 4 of us playing through this JHS 3 Series board I built. And one was like a blues style. I think I did worship stuff with my Falcon. Someone played a hardcore, like a metal, more grungy tone, and someone played like bluegrass or something. But it was just like, it was the fact that we all could play through the board and play, which was cool. So it's really adaptable. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really cool, especially people wanting to get into the music stuff. Like I had the RP50 that's from Digitech, like we got past. Like this was my first pedal, and I think it was in it. But seeing these cheaper pedals, it's easy to get a couple of them for Christmas without breaking the bank and letting your kid see if he even enjoys playing.
Yeah.
I'd be curious for you guys.
That's what I think.
Sorry to railroad the conversation here, but if you could pick one brand to do a $99 pedal line, what brand are you choosing?
Does it matter whether I think that they could actually
No.
That they're in a place to do it?
I think the qualifications are that it will be like the fundamental, the 3 Series and Keeley, it will be a stripped back feature set. So it's not going to be a Chase Bliss mood as it currently sits. It'll probably be a Chase Bliss mood with 3 knobs, no MIDI, basic feature set. You know what I mean? Like that kind of, it'll be a stripped back version of a brand that you currently enjoy, but you want to see them do a $99 line. What brand would you pick?
And one thing I forgot is didn't Wampler do like a $99 pedal?
See, that would make sense.
Yeah, he did.
Kind of in the same vein, right?
The Triumph
I think
and the Phenom. Yeah, I've got it on screen right now. And so they're based on an SD1 and then a 5150 style thing. Anyway.
But past tense, it sounds like he's no longer doing them.
I don't, it looks like they're around. It looks like they're around. Yeah. But this was in 2022. So I guess sorry, we forgot about Wampler. I think Chase Bliss, if they did a 3-knob analog delay or something like that, for $99, they would sell a lot of pedals because their barrier to entry is higher than the other brands we mentioned. So
Definitely
if
cost.
you could get, a stripped back tonal recall that's 3 knobs and a foot switch and a DC jack
or a stripped back MK2 and it just has one moving fader and you have to choose what you want it to control.
To do. No way they could do it for $99. There's no way. But I think they would be hugely popular. I'm trying to think of like companies like that have kind of like these cult followings that.
Well, I'd be curious to see someone like Maris or Strymon, who, I mean, they've shown that they can do the big box. I mean, right behind me we have the LVX. They know how to do the big box multi effects. But like, what would it look like if a company like that did a smaller box? And it might be something like Brig or Cloudburst and even more simplified. But I think they would be primed to, I don't know if they could do it because again, cost being the main thing here, but it would be cool to see a 3 Series style thing come from a company like that with a DSP background.
I'd like to see like an HX1 thing from Strymon. Like think of how valuable that would be because and that's not to take anything away from the HX1 or that new plethora, those look really cool. But I think Strymon's algorithms and just the things that the sound of the pedals, if you could have a singular device MIDI that you could make any one Strymon effect that you wanted of
like an H9 type thing, one effect at a time. Same as HX1, obviously.
That would be a huge
for $99.
thing. Well, I don't expect it to be $99, but if they could even make it for the price of an El Capistan or something like that, I would be in line to buy that because there's always every board I think that is being used for multi-purpose reasons can always have an HX1 or a plethora or something that could be anything and that you can move it around if it's in a switcher. So valuable to have because then you never really have to account for these what if situations. You have a device that addresses it. If Strymon did that, and maybe this is in development, I feel like they would own that territory easily. Because I can't imagine they'd be that much more expensive than the HX1.
It'd possibly cannibalize their whole line, though. I mean,
I
don't think so.
Because some people don't like the all-in-one. I don't think it would. I think some people would like it, but like there are just some people that like the individual pedals. Like if you do an all-in-one, that's more menu diving. Like you have to go into each block and you have to select the parameters and everything. But like the board in front of me has a Mobius timeline and a Big Sky on it, and there isn't an all-in-one, but like the convenience factor of having them an all-in-one would be really cool. That is for sure. Like each of the 3 foot switches, each does each side, like a Big Sky, a timeline, and a Mobius, like in one closure. Yeah, that would be cool. Like I jokingly said when the H90 came out from Eventide, I was like, man, just cut off the 2 foot switches on the end, have the 1 foot switch in the middle, the screen, and the 3 little knobs, and just like that smaller form factor of a foot switch with all those different algorithms or something like that. Yeah, I guess that's obviously it's not $99 pedal, but like stuff like that, like you were saying, Mason, that plethora pedal where it can do the different sounds. I wish the plethora had MIDI for the smaller one because that would be really cool, like an 1/8 inch or something.
Yeah,
because then you could easily use that pedal as your one trick pony, kind of like, oh, I don't always use octave, but when I do, plethora, like that kind of thing. But instead, obviously you have to turn the dial, but maybe there would be a Goodwood MIDI mod for that.
I'm getting away from those. They're so time consuming. Those are hard to pull off.
That's how I did a MIDI mod on a Nova Delay from TC, and I love the Nova Delay, but the MIDI mod on it was so time consuming. I stopped doing them. There is a great pedal, but I'm just like, TC, just do it anyway. Yeah, no, I agree. I would say for a 99, I think I would have to go with Maris. I think I could really see Maris if they could do a stripped back version of like a core sound
7
pedal, couple sounds or whatever. Even just like, yeah, just like Mercury 1 or I don't know, call it something where it's just a couple like an RV5 or 7 style. Couple settings, couple switches, no MIDI, really simple. Even if MIDI obviously makes it more expensive, but even just really basic with those like sounds. Because like even on the Big Sky, I only use 2 algorithms, Hall and Cloud. Those are it. Like, I don't know. But yeah, it would be cool to see.
And I think a company that has done this, but not gone the $99 route, they've gone a different route entirely, is UA. And with their whole line of pedals if you look at the enclosures, they are, as far as I know, all the same drill pattern, or at least very close. But the enclosures, they can order in large batches. And then after they've ordered, it's like, okay, we'll do 10% Ruby, 10% Dream. And they can, do that after a big enclosure order. So they're saving a lot of money, by simplifying their enclosures. And then each pedal has, arguably, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming a very similar, if not the same PCB. And then they load on the software that they want to do. But they have obviously chosen to gone, being UA, a premium brand for sure, to charge a lot more for those pedals. And again, they probably could not charge $99, but they've gone a different route and streamlined their whole process. And so I think you see this approach in quite a few different areas, especially for larger companies that have the manufacturing and a whole bunch of things I don't understand with cost analysis in place. And it's just a smart way to do a line of pedals if you can pull it off.
Yeah.
But like Mason was saying, I think I really do enjoy the fact that these companies, Walrus, JHS, Wampler, since Mason's mentioned that, and Keeley, I love that they are making it affordable at a time, and JHS has been out for years now, but at a time where people are really feeling the budget tighten, we can now still, get a pedal if we need it without absolutely destroying the budgets or the Pedalboard budget or whatever it may be. So I really do appreciate it, and I think it's really cool to see some quality pedals at a price that we can mostly afford. I think it's great.
Yeah. Same.
Well, it was cool talking about this with you guys, and I hope that the listeners found the discussion insightful or interesting. Maybe you agree with some of this. Maybe you have an alternative perspective. We would love to hear from you nonetheless in the commentary if you're on YouTube or wherever you may be listening. And additionally, just to finish up, and I am speaking to you. So if you're listening right now, know that I'm speaking to you directly when I say that it is extremely helpful to us. I know it takes a little bit of extra energy, and I apologize for that. If there was an easier way to make this happen, I would have you do it in that way. But the best way that you can help us and this podcast is by writing us a review wherever you listen. And I'm primarily thinking of places like Apple and Spotify. But wherever you find your podcasts, even if you're watching us on YouTube, it is extremely helpful if you write us an honest review on one of those platforms and let people know what you think about the podcast. Because whatever star rating you give us and whatever description you give, this is all helpful to help other listeners either find our podcast or not find our podcast, who are likely to listen to 3 people that are in the pedalboard, pedal building world, and they may be interested in the same content just like you are. And this is very helpful. So I would really appreciate it if you could do that. Leave us a rating. It doesn't have to be a 5-star rating. It just has to be an honest rating and review of the podcast. It could be a few sentences, if that. Some people leave a few words, and that's totally fine. And we really appreciate you being here, and we want to make sure that we can continue to do the podcast and make it sustainable moving forward. And that's one way to help ensure that as we continue into 2025. Gentlemen, until next week, we will see y'all later.
See you guys.